Mulabandha is a very, very subtle action. And when we're talking about bandhas, we're talking about bringing our awareness exactly to an energy center of our body. And it sounds odd sometimes to think of, we have all of these chakras and they're all called centers, but how can I have 7 centers? It's in the same way that like the Satchidananda, which is a guy, he's dead now, he has like over 100 centers in the world. These are centers. They're locations of congregation where people kind of coalesce and they live and thrive in that vibration of Satchidananda Yoga, which was integral yoga. That's the name of it. And so there's all these centers around the world, but none of them are the center. So we have these centers in our body, and none of them are necessarily the center, but they're a center of something. They're a center of some activity. And so a bandha is bringing your awareness to a center. And you've probably heard it in like in very quantum level physics or chemistry, that there's more space between an electron and the nucleus than the actual size of the nucleus. The atom is like 90-something% space, and a little bit of it is, quote, matter. We don't need to get that deep into it, but the idea is that there's much more space in our body than there is actual physical body. It's in those spaces that the chakras are. The chakras aren't on the perineum. They're not on the tailbone. They're in that void. Okay, so the location of the chakras can be approximated, and they're really useful and to understand whereabouts they are.
You talked about that in that video.
Yeah.
I remember.
Okay, cool. So Mulabandha or Muladhara chakra, which means root seat, Muladhara, is more or less at the pelvic floor. And specifically, it said that the root is the tip of the tailbone, and the flowering, it flowers down and forward onto the pelvic floor, which is the pubic plexus. So it's this area between the pubic symphysis, right, and the tailbone, or the coccyx. And it forms a kind of diamond. So this would be the tailbone, this would be the pubic symphysis. And what's super interesting, so this is tying it back together to your external hip rotation, is the deep, I don't want to stand up and be pointing to my butt or whatever, but you can find the outer hips. I can't really, tell me if you can see my hand pointing to my hip right here.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, so there's a bone right here. This is the Greater Trochanter. The iliac crest is here. This is the hip crest. And then there's this bone, and I have them on both sides, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so from here, from the posterior side of this bone to my sacrum, underneath this butt cheek, this is the glute max, and there's some other glute muscles under it, but deeper is the deep external hip rotator. So from this bone, the back side of it, to my sacrum, and also to some other things like my ischium, my sit bone, there are these muscles. The most commonly known one is piriformis, but then there's all these gemellus muscles and I think one other. Okay, are you with me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, move the camera up a little bit. Or sit back or something. So what's super interesting, and this is one of my areas of fascination and research, is fascia lines and how the fascia of one muscle connects to the fascia of another. And so you get this line of connective tissue that transcends individual muscles. There's a fascia line that connects the deep external hip rotators to the pubic plexus. Basically, the perineum muscles, the perineal muscles, the fibers of it run parallel to the deep external hip rotators when the deep external hip rotators are in flexion, meaning when I'm sitting cross-legged. When my knees are out, my heels are in, either in like a butterfly stretch or if I'm doing like a lotus pose or something like that, that deep external hip rotation orients the deep external hip rotators, the fibers of them, in parallel with the perineal muscles. And so it helps you to access the perineal muscles by sitting cross-legged, which you have a natural disposition to do. Now you can do Mulabandha not, but it's like kind of breaking a connection and focusing on a smaller area. It's It requires more sensitivity, sometimes a little bit more effort. It's easier to find it with the assistance of the external rotators. This is what I do in my hips workshops. Oh yeah, I was talking about doing it here in Oklahoma, so I'll have them do some. There's some exercises. I haven't posted the videos yet because, to be honest, it takes too much time to make videos. But there are ways to access the external hip rotators. But for now, you can just sit cross-legged or however. And it's... So like I said in that previous video, you're probably doing too much effort when I say pucker the anus, Mulabandha. And first, let's talk about why are we doing Mulabandha? What the hell? Like, why is this so important? And I say it in that video that I never really felt, they told me when I first got into yoga that Mulabandha helps keep our prana in our body. That if we have a relaxed, more or less anus, that the prana will flow out and will become depleted of energy, and by the end of the yoga practice we'll be tired. And that's not the goal. We want to create prana to charge our lives. The yoga practice as we do it, because we're not monks, we're not doing yoga 12, 14, 16 hours a day. We're doing it an hour or 2 hours a day. The idea is for that yoga practice to charge us up for the rest of our day. But if we're not working with bandhas, we might end up feeling a little depleted. We'll get a little surge of energy because we had tension in muscles, and when we release that, we reclaim the energy that was being held in a flexed muscle. But over time, your body becomes supple and soft, and you don't really have large amounts of tension to release. And so where is the energy coming from that we're charging ourselves with? A lot of it is deep breathing. We're oxygenating our body. A lot of it is this esoteric concept of prana. And I didn't ever notice, or it was never a reality for me, that prana was exiting my body until I got deep into chakra meditation. And when I got into chakra meditation, I became sensitive enough to notice when I held bandhas, I had more prana or energy. I had more vitality, let's say. It's a vibrancy. It's a potential. It's like feeling like I have the potential to take action. That's a prana. Versus if I didn't hold the bandha, I'd feel more depleted.